Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Costello. Today, we're going to talk about mindfulness, but we're not going to talk about mindfulness in the kind of mainstream way. We've got some things that we need to consider when we're talking about mindfulness, and we're going to consider some of those things. So we're going to talk about consciousness and how consciousness can be effective in cultivating mindfulness and awareness in our daily lives. So we've got a load of questions. But before we get into any of that, we need to find out who this lady sitting to my left, it might be your right, as you look at it, I have no idea. Anne Bost. Anne, please introduce yourself.
Hello, Steve. Hello, everyone. So I am Bost. I am a breathing behavior specialist and the creator of Miracle Breathe. And in my work, I've deeply into the intricate connection between our breath and the uncovering how conscious breathing can profoundly influence our mindset and our well-being. And by understanding and harnessing the powerful link I witnessed with Hen, how it can transform lives, empowering individuals to live fulfilled, healthy, and successful lives in all areas. So today I'm thrilled to be there to share insight and engage in a meaningful discussion with you, Steve, on mindfulness and awareness, and exploring how conscious breathing can serve as a gateway to the greater presence, clarity, and fulfillment.
Brilliant.
So,
thank you, Anne. So I better give a couple of things about me. I know that people seeing this video in my network know plenty about me. I'm always talking to them about something or other. But very quickly, I started life as a personal development practitioner, working mostly with young people and their families. And then that developed because although I was a qualified counselor, I realized that I needed to go further. I needed to be able to go further to better help the people I was working with. So I became a psychologist, and through psychology and postgraduate qualifications, I became a therapist as well. So I'm kind of a therapist, now became a therapist, personal development practitioner. And then, so that was all going well, as it does, until one day I crashed out. I had a physical accident and it took me out of work. I couldn't work and all kinds of crazy things happened. And during the time that I was sick, a physiotherapist introduced me to this thing called breathing through the pain. We're going to come on to that in a little while, which also was my first introduction to mindfulness. I kind of heard about this mindfulness thing before, but I didn't know much about it. And through this physiotherapist, I began to learn what is mindfulness, how does it work, what does it mean, etc., blah, 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 blah. And eventually I began, as I got back into the workplace, I began to integrate mindfulness practice into my work as a therapist and a coach, which was very, very cool because not everybody is able to do that. They've not had the experience. I'd had the experience, which was nice. So that's where I come from. That's where my interest lies. So let's get on. I want to start by asking Anne a question, and that's to explain how consciousness can be effective, or an effective way to cultivate mindfulness and awareness in our everyday life.
It's a great question. Thank you, Steve. We have a lot to tell about that question. But I want to explain something very important for me, because when we talk about awareness and mindfulness, it's something that we separate and we ignore the significations, the real meaning about these words. And for me, when I talk with my work, with my conscious breathing, it serves a powerful tool for cultivating mindfulness and also awareness. Just you are aware of how do you breathe, observe, be just an observer of your breathing. And after, you put an intention on your breathing and you become aware of the present moment. Just that that's it, mindfulness. So awareness is just the first part where you can be aware of a lot of things in all area in your life. And when you are mindful, you are in the certain things. You put an intention to put all your focus on the things. So that's the first part that I want to explain, the difference, not the difference, but the complementarity, the combination of the work on awareness and mindfulness. But in some parts, that works together. You cannot be aware and not conscious and not mindfulness. That's work together. That's my part of my work on my conscious breathing. It serves as a profound gateway to cultivating mindfulness, awareness in your daily life, and to bring awareness. I think that I have to bring breathing patterns, identify potential dysfunctional breathing habits, and all of that brings more awareness, and you live better. You are more healthy in life.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant. That's a great phrase you used just then, dysfunctional breathing habits. So one of the questions I always ask my clients, especially new clients, is, so let's say, for example, they're talking about feeling stressed about some aspect of their lives. So I usually slow them down a little bit to get them to stop and say, okay, what happens to your breathing when you feel stressed? And some people say, I don't breathe, I stop, I hold my breath. What happens when you hold your breath? Nothing happens. You can't talk, you can't think, your body goes crazy, you feel tightness in the chest, and we fall apart eventually if we keep on doing that. Other people tell me they breathe so fast they go dizzy. Okay, these two examples are extremes, but they're real examples from real people that I work with. So all of us need to just pay a little bit of attention and listen to what Anne has to say in relation to breathing, because wow, it matters so much. So I also want to pick up on this thing about mindfulness and awareness. Mindfulness and awareness are definitely related. There's no doubt about that. And the concepts are often kind of used interchangeably. But the thing is, there are some differences, and quite often we miss the differences. And it's perhaps because they're quite small differences in some cases. They're not all small. So if you think about mindfulness, mindfulness often talks about focusing our attention, for example, on our breathing, focusing our attention on one particular object or sensation or activity that is happening right now in this moment. We're talking about one thing. So like I said, it could be the breath, it could be our bodily sensations. I frequently say to people, what do you feel right now in your body? And that usually provides some interesting answers. So it's all about the present moment. It's about being fully engaged with whatever we're doing or experiencing. But on the other hand, if we just talk about awareness, that's more about a broad and open presence to whatever's happening in the present moment. So it's not just one thing. We have half a dozen, 6 or 7 things going on in the present moment. So it's about being aware of those things. So it's a little bit more than in mindfulness, where we may be just looking at one thing or one particular topic, let's say, a simple way to put it. So what do you think about that, Anne?
I think that we can see the relationship between mindfulness and awareness in the context also of cognitive behavioral therapy and positive psychology. You say it's your expertise, and I think that you have some insights for us to share and to talk more about the relationship in that way with your work, with your expertise.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about this, so we're gonna we don't have all day. I would like it if we did, so I'll try and be concise. So when I use cognitive behavioral therapy, with one of my clients. One of the things we're doing is we're going back into the past, into their past, their timeline. Let's go back along your timeline to find out what it is that's causing chaos. Frequently it is chaos, but what's causing chaos today. So we go back on the timeline and we look for things that relate to whatever is going on. Usually we find more than enough to talk about by doing this. So using mindfulness, what we're doing is enabling people to become more aware of the thoughts that they're having right now in this moment and how they link back to the past. So CBT helps go back to the past and look at those thoughts. It helps people to recognize these automatic thought patterns that go on. So let's say 20 years ago, let's think what 20 years ago, somebody in your family told you that they didn't want to hear you sing. Simple. A year later in school, your teacher says, I don't want you on the front row of the choir, your voice isn't so great. So two things have happened relating to singing. So the second thing with the teacher built upon the first thing, so the thing became a bit bigger. Later in life, a friend jokes, don't sing, you sound terrible. Reminder, that's 3 times I've been told not to sing. And we build it up until it becomes such what I like to call a big ball of knotted wool. We don't know how to untangle it. We don't even know whether we want to untangle it. We don't want to visit that place because it's quite painful. So this is where CBT and mindfulness come in, and they're very powerful at unraveling these balls of wool. So we go back to the past, we look for all the examples. We prove, it's almost like going to court with our thoughts. We prove that the thoughts actually are not quite true. At least they're no longer true. So we have to show that these thoughts can be prosecuted, as it were. So imagine going to court. You've got the defense, you've got the prosecution, and you've got the judge. Too much judgment in mindfulness. We try not to judge.
Yeah.
That's another topic. We'll have to come on to that one. So by cultivating mindfulness in CBT, what we're trying to get people to do is to learn to observe their thoughts without judgment. So somebody said 20 years ago that I can't sing. I'm going to see that thought. Wow, that's interesting. Let's be curious about this thought. What does it make me feel like? How does my body feel because of this thought? Is it true? Curiosity. We're trying not to judge it. Whereas in the past, people have said, no, I can't sing. I've been told I can't sing, I can't sing. We're being more curious about the thought than judging the thought. So that is very powerful. And that's where awareness comes in, because we're aware of what we feel. We're aware of our thoughts. We try to become aware of our breathing. So we're looking at 3 things, but we try to make them all automatic as well. So our breathing needs to be automatic. I'm sure you've got plenty to say about this one. That positive breathing has to be automatic. We don't want to go into that, I'm stressed, I'm going to hold my breath situation. Or I'm stressed, I'm going to breathe at, I don't know, 50 beats a minute or whatever we want to call it. So what do you think about this whole idea of mindfulness and CBT? And
you know, Steve, the relationship between mindfulness and awareness is indeed multifaceted in my understanding. Mindfulness serves as a foundation for cultivating awareness, as it involves being fully present in the moment and observing how thoughts and emotions without judgment. You just let the thought, you just let the emotion enters in you, but you don't take attention, you don't pay attention of it. You let without judgment. It's not about refuse your emotion, refuse your thoughts. It's just accept and make the integration of your thoughts. I think that it's the main thing is to integrate, to accept and integrate. And a lot in my work, I observe that people fix and focus on the past, and the body is like a machine. It works with automatic, with reflex, and all reflex is the same work in my breathing, because the dysfunctional breathing habits start in the childhood, when you are a child, when you are in the past, and in the future, your dysfunctional breathing habits is already there, but more fixed. It's more difficult to act on the brain because it's more dysfunctional than the years that you had. And by fostering mindfulness, individuals can develop a greater capacity for self-awareness and self-regulation. And it's fundamental aspect of effective therapeutic interventions. It's therapeutic and also coaching, because you have to be to work as therapy, as a therapist, and with coaching, because we guide people in a certain way. So can you share some concrete examples where we integrate mindfulness practices has been particularly effective in your therapeutic interventions or in your work?
Just before I do that, I just want to mention something, and it follows from what you were just talking about just now, Anne, about breathing and how it starts in or dysfunctional breathing starting in childhood. A couple of days ago, my 3-year-old grandson, I took him to bed with stories, and it was really cool. I love doing that stuff. And I said, okay, that's it now. And he said, no, I'm not ready to sleep. So I thought, because I'm a softie, so I thought, okay, we'll tell another story. So we told another story. And then he suddenly, he put up his hand and he said, now I have to sleep. And he closed his eyes, and that was it. He was finished. He was asleep very quickly. And then I'm just sitting watching him, and I thought, he's not breathing. And I put my ear close to him, and he was breathing. Beautiful, comfortable, gentle, the most gentle, soft breathing imaginable. It was beautiful.
How old is he?
That's 3.
It's normal at 3 years old.
Yeah,
your breathing
absolutely.
is like a baby, that it's a flow. You're breathing soft, gently. You see the movement very, very deep between the abdomen and the thoracic part, like a wave. And you know that you can breathe like a baby, like your grandson.
Exactly.
It's possible for everyone to keep that breathing.
But
we forget, we live by experience, by emotions part. And
that's something, this thing about emotions. So I'll come on to your question in a second. So we were talking about awareness a few minutes ago. So in awareness in the context, for example, of CBT, really most often refers to this broader understanding of our mental and emotional processes. Quite often, although we all understand something about our mental processes and our emotional processes, we choose not to recognize them. We push them underground. And it's when we push them underground that problems grow out, the weeds grow, is perhaps a good way to put it. So we need to be aware about that. So we need to recognize the triggers. What triggers our negative thoughts? What triggers this too fast or too slow breathing or holding our breath, not breathing? What is it that triggers all of that? So there's an awful lot to look at. It's easy to say, we need to be aware, guys, but that's not going to help anybody. So we've got to focus on that. Anne and I are specialists. We know how to help. So this is why we're sharing some of our insights today. So concrete, you asked for some concrete examples of how mindfulness practices in therapeutic interventions has shown some effectiveness. Well, there's a lot of research out there. Research, also known as somebody who spent an awful lot of money to discover whether mindfulness is helpful in real terms. So there's loads of research. If anybody's interested and would like to know some research links, give me a shout, send a direct message, put a comment below the video, and I will respond. You'll get some links so you can read those at your leisure. So let's think about, I want to use a personal example about chronic pain management. So as I said a few minutes ago, I had an accident. It was a bad accident. It was a big fracture on my left knee that left me in a plaster for 3 or 4 months. I can't remember precisely. It's a while ago now. But something else happened. So the fracture healed, but the pain didn't go away. Eventually, the pain spread all over my body. And the doctor said, that's it, mate. You're stuck to a wheelchair. You're not going to leave your wheelchair for the rest of your life. And that was that's a shock, a big, big shock. At this stage, I hadn't met the physiotherapist who talked to me about breathing through the pain. So my body went into a kind of meltdown. I couldn't envision being disabled for the rest of my life, sitting in a wheelchair. None of that made any sense. I had a young family, and that caused me to panic. So my whole body went kind of crazy. And then the doctors were giving me pain medications and they weren't working, so they would give me a new one, and it wasn't working, so they gave me a new one. And so it went on until I ended up taking a lot of morphine. So much so that I became addicted to morphine. So the doctors were giving me something that was making me an addict. But the thing is about being an addict, which is really interesting, is that you've no idea that you are an addict. It's just life. It is what it is. And that's kind of scary in itself. So all of that's going on. And then this physiotherapist comes along and he says, Steve, I'm going to teach you how to breathe through the pain. And my first reaction was, don't be stupid, that you can't do that. That's never going to work, because I was not in a bright, sunny place at this time. So I went with his suggestions for a while, and basically what it taught me was to breathe in through the nose, hold my breath, breathe out gently through the mouth for the same count. So for me, it's always 4 or 5 seconds. So that's what I was doing. So I get the flow going. And then he said, now I want you to, on the next breath, imagine breathing in through your knee, which is where the greatest pain was. And I thought this guy was a bit crazy, but I thought, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to practice. So I kept doing it and doing it. In through the knee, hold the breath, back out through the knee, and so on. And for weeks and weeks, I just kept practicing, and nothing happened. The breathing was cool. That made me feel good. But nothing's happening in relation to the knee. But the breathing, no problem. So I kept doing it. And then one day, I had this big, huge ha-ha moment. I could swear that I felt the in-breath go into the knee. I could absolutely swear that that's what I felt in that moment. And again, it came out, and then it went in, and it came out. So I was feeling this breathing thing going on. Now, it didn't make me better. But what it did do is that it created space. It created this incredible space where I could actually say, do you know what? I've got some control here. I'm breathing through this pain situation. The pain did decrease, but like I said, it didn't go away, it did decrease. So it was controlling the pain. I was beginning to accept the pain, because before I was definitely never, ever in a million years going to accept that pain. I fought it with all my, every fiber of my being. And you know what? Fighting pain is really tiring. It's so tiring that you kind of get pain on top of the pain because of how tiring it is, which is crazy. You think about it, it's kind of a vicious circle. You're racing around and not going anywhere. So using mindfulness to reduce how I felt about the pain enabled me to find space. And in that space, I was able to talk with a therapist about what it was that was going on in my mind, in my body, and all of the stuff. But I was still doing breathing through the pain. So I was able to keep it calm. And by keeping it calm, I was able to talk about it. And as we talked about it, I took steps forward. I'm still breathing through the pain all the time and taking these steps forward. So that's quite incredible, isn't it? One little tiny mindfulness intervention. All I was doing was being present in that moment. It taught me not to judge the pain. Most doctors, when you go pain doctors, when you go and see a pain doctor, they say, tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your pain right now? So what does your brain do? Oh, how bad is the pain? Okay, it's a 10. I started saying 15 from doctors, which was quite frustrating for them. But that was how I felt. I felt that the pain was really a 15, 10 didn't cover it. But by not asking what the pain score was, it gave me some more space. So is this making sense? How a very simple mindfulness intervention created a lot of space so that I could manage all the psychological stuff that was going on around having the accident, sitting in the wheelchair, and so on and so forth. And today, I ride a mountain bike, I ski. I'm not sitting in a wheelchair right now. I've not sat in a wheelchair for 10 years. And that is because of that one guy who introduced me to mindfulness. So that example is fairly anecdotal because it's not been researched. It's about me and what I went through. But yet, if you read the research reports about chronic pain and mindfulness, you see similar examples. So
that's very interesting, and thank you so much for sharing your story and the recovering with breathing and with mindfulness. But what do you think about that way? All science research about mindfulness, they talk first about our breathing, because breathing is the first part that you have an observer and to be in the present moment and to create more space in your body and create more space around you. So for me, breathing is the first part that you can create this consciousness, this mindfulness. And after that, you don't have to bring all your attention on your breath every day, all the time. No, just 5 minutes a day, and it's okay. And if we have some times, I would love to share a short exercise on breathing, because I think that it's very helpful for all people who listen to us. A short exercise is I just ask a question to my client and to everybody when I meet new people. How do you breathe? And the simple question asking, they start to think, oh my God, my breathing is automatic function. And I say, okay, do you know that your breathing is an automatic function? But the only function that you can control. You cannot control the blood pressure. You cannot control the pressure, but you can control your breathing. And by the fact that you can control your breathing, you can control all your physiology, all your body side. So you can act on your stomach, on your food that you ingest, you can act on your pain, you can act on different parts on your work. And for this, and you don't have to buy something, you don't have to eat something special, you don't have to take pills, you don't have to drink water. You have the powerful, the wonderful asset, our breathing. And we can use it every day. So just a few exercises that I can share with you. It's how do you breathe? It's a simple test. I invite all of you to sit in a comfortable position on a chair or a cushion. And just close your eyes, just to be an observer, just 2 minutes, not so much. And place your left hand on your chest, over your heart. And place your right hand on your abdomen, over your belly button. When your hands are placed, you pay attention to your breathing. You observe the movement of each hand. Which hand move on your body? You breathe in from your nose and exhale from your mouth, or inhale from your mouth and exhale from your mouth. Sorry for this exercise. It's just to observe where is your breathing. Pay attention to your breathing. Observe what each hand does on the inhale and on the exhale. And if both hands rise and fall more or less at the same time in a shallow motion as you breathe in, you are breathing through your chest. And if your abdomen moves inward and your chest upward, you breathe in, it's the opposite happens when you breathe out. You are in a reverse breathing. And normally you can't count your breaths accurately when you focus on your breathing, because when you start to count your breaths, you manipulate your breath. But just to try it in this moment, just try to count. You inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you exhale. And just in doing that, you're counting more than 14 breaths per minute. You can consider that you're probably breathing too fast for someone who is sitting comfortably just right now. And if the hand on your chest is almost still and the hand on your abdomen goes, when you breathe in and out, when you breathe is between your both hands and your hand moves in the same way, like a wave, you are breathing correctly. It's not about taking a deep breath and be in relaxation. It's not that. It's just have a functional breathing in different situations in all day. Just be an observer by this way. It's a simple exercise. Just see how do you breathe? Where is your breathing? How do you feel it? The depth, if your breathing is slow, if your breathing is more fast, if you breathe, just bring your awareness to the pace of your breath. So it just takes 5 minutes to be an observer, to just be the awareness. And it's very helpful to work on breathing, but I'm not here to do that. And if our audience is interested to know more about breathing, we can give more insight in the next video that we will share, or they can send a message to you and ask me for more insight about the breathing. And I have some powerful exercise on my website also available if we need to share. So, okay. Brilliant. So how do you feel, Steve, with this exercise? It remembers
I love this. I love this exercise. I was doing it all the time you were talking. I was just here. And I think that's one of the beautiful things. I am here. I'm right here now in this moment. I didn't drift away. I was totally focused on the exercise and it made me feel good. I feel light. I had some tension in my neck from earlier because I was a little bit stressy about things.
Much work.
Yeah.
You know, the first part of the neck is very common that we have some stress, so much work, and the first part, it's your back and your neck.
And your neck. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to share it in any detail right now, but so I mentioned that I ride mountain bikes and ski, but particularly when I'm riding mountain bikes, which I aim to do at least 3 out of every 5 days. So it's kind of 5 days that roll around. One of the things that I practice is while climbing a hill, okay, it can't be rough and bumpy, so it's just a smooth climb up a hill. I've practiced breathing to slow my breathing down. I did it as an experiment to see if by practicing slowing my breathing down whilst I'm riding up a hill, whether that would actually slow me down as a cyclist. And it doesn't.
Mm.
Speed is still the same. So you can use breathing in all kinds of situations.
All of kind situation, and for me, it's very important to tell people that you have to learn to breathe, because a lot of exercise that you can find on the different information in book, on different internet exercise website, you find some exercise to take a deep breath, but deep breath is not a functional breathing habit that you can have. Maybe your breathing is more fast. It's not about that. It's more functional. And you have to learn, because when you ask people to take a deep breath, they manipulate their breathing.
Yeah.
They push the diaphragm, they force, and it brings constriction in the diaphragm, and it brings blocks, and the diaphragm totally blocks, and many women have the diaphragm blocks because they have the habit to block the diaphragm. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we've got to look at these things in future episodes, because we're covering what we're kind of doing right now. We're covering a lot of ground and
Yeah.
to focus in. I just want to go back a little bit, because you asked me about the integrating mindfulness practices into therapeutic interventions, and I only mentioned chronic pain. I mentioned that because I have a personal example. But mindfulness is also, or mindfulness-based interventions are also powerful in relation to anxiety disorders, stress reduction. What else? Depression. It doesn't make depression better. It doesn't make anxiety better. It alleviates what's going on. It loosens the effects so that we can work with the true causes of what's happening out there. Substance use, there's evidence that mindfulness helps people with substance use disorders, because it helps people to develop greater self-control and coping strategies, managing urges to use substances or drugs or tobacco, whatever it happens to be. So there's those things. Eating disorders is another one. So helping people to regulate what they're eating, why they're eating when they eat, and so on and so forth. And there's even a lot of evidence about PTSD. We all hear loads of stories about PTSD. PTSD is not confined to the military. If we listen to the media, we may believe that it is, but it's not.
I work a lot by myself with the breathing part, so I think that we have a lot for sharing together, and I think that it would be interesting to organize something together more interesting and inside. I invite people to join us and for a workshop or something else, because we have a lot of exercise to bring and to story to share. So yeah,
absolutely.
So thank you, Steve, for this moment. It was very helpful, inspiring discussion, and we have a lot to discuss. Time flies very fast.
Absolutely, it does. Thank you, Anne. It's been brilliant to be here with you. And just one thing to everybody out there, leave comments, ask questions, send direct messages by all means. You don't need to go public with what's going on with you, and we do not break confidence, so direct messages stay with us. So please ask questions, because if you don't ask a question, you'll never get the answer. So do ask. Okay, we'll be back again really soon. This platform, wherever this platform happens to be right now, we'll speak to you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.